Yes.
Take me to your leader.
We've got a special guest. I don't know if there's a Google Translator or something that'll be able to interpret what this person's been saying.
Say that again.
Tell us where you come from.
Fucking Manchester.
There's this theory, again, I must say it's unsubstantiated, that they were dabbling in exotic technologies as early as the late 1930s. He said it was a woman, but you couldn't see her face. It was like an orb of light. And she said, life's the test. You keep coming back until you get it right.
I went through all the emotions. I cried, I laughed, giggled a little bit, I got angry, and then I cried, and I went through this whole range of emotions. But when I came out, there was an intrinsic feeling and knowing that there's something else.
There's loads of inventors who've made vehicles cars that have run on fucking water.
Oh yeah, no, I heard this story.
There was an inventor who ran one on urine or something like that, and these people just disappeared.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for the support so far on this project. It means the absolute world to us.
However, we've noticed that around 75% of you who listen and watch the show haven't yet hit the subscribe or like button.
So in order for this community to grow and allow us to build this project, we have a small request from you.
Please hit the subscribe or like button on the app that you're listening or watching this show. Your commitment... What were you laughing at? I did a really good job, didn't I? Right, do another one. Please hit the subscribe or like button on the app you're watching or listening this show. Listening this show.
Remember to smile.
I'm always smiling.
You weren't.
Was I not? Stop it. Kelly's fucking waiting for us
Come on.
outside, bro.
Composed. Right, let's do it.
Please hit the subscribe or like button on the app you're listening to or watching this fucking show. Right, come on, just one more. Please hit the subscribe or like button. Your commitment is our commitment.
Let's do this.
Fuck off, come on, more.
Yeah, I'm not going to cheeseball it up, but I'll go, let's do this.
That'll do.
Red Martin hiking on, didn't we, as well yesterday?
You got headphones on as well?
Funnily enough.
We're rolling.
We're rolling. I can hear myself.
I can't hear me.
Oh, is it plugged in? No, it's not plugged in. You know what's quite hard to do it with these gloves on?
Aye, mate.
Don't you laugh.
Oh shit, I'll put my phone on silent.
Yes. You in?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Sound. Buzzing. Right.
Take me to your leader.
Right. Schak, welcome back.
How are you doing?
I'm really good. How are you, mate?
Really good. We've got a special guest. I don't know if there's a Google Translator or something that'll be able to interpret what this person's been saying.
Say that again. Do you get any of that? We'll say try once more.
So tell us where you come from.
Fucking Manchester.
I don't know any aliens from Manchester, like.
This is hard, this.
I'm sweating already.
Maybe there's a few on the sesh.
I can get... This is going to take some time. Right, so should we preface it to let people know what the fuck we're doing? Because this looks really, really, really different to the normal shows.
Well,
Go on, Pete, go on.
bit of a
Rabbit hole.
a clue and the rabbit hole. And first of all, I want to give a shout out to Waff. Waff was meant to be down here tonight with us, currently nursing his ears. So wish Waff well.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
But Shak's here, and many conversation last time before and after the podcast, and then we wanted to do a special. So we're diving in to the UFO
What special?
phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly. UFO special.
Or,
Extended version.
Yeah.
or UAP.
They're coming off. They're well out of them.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
You know the new one, Shak.
Well, I'm just going to say now, I'm not into this topic as much as you two, and I was looking forward to a bit of a lesson.
Yeah.
Some learnings are going to come out of this for me.
Okay.
And I know that you're really into this. Waff obviously was really into this. And I know you are as well. So where the fuck do you want to start with this?
Pete, you want to lead?
Project Bluebook. US Air Force Investigation Department / looking at unidentified flying objects back after Roswell, really. Roswell was kind of 1947.
47. Yeah.
And then Project Blue Book was 1952 to 1969. So this was when the government was actually investigating these. There was that many sightings, and in particular within the US Air Force, that they had to start to take these things a little bit serious. That was back then. And recently under like the Secrecy Act got changed, and these government files that was previously not allowed to be public have now slowly been becoming public in recent years. So there's different departments now that were still investigating it, but Project Blue Book was way back then.
I think to just touch on what you said there about the Secrecy Act, I think it's very interesting because you know how things are in this world, that all of a sudden they're starting to talk about all this stuff, and I'm like, why?
So
it's been going on for so long, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh yep, and then they've declassified footage from the Navy, the United States Navy, the Air Force, so it's like certifiable, irrefutable evidence of something. So it makes you ask, well, why now? Some of the footage, like the Tic Tac one, I think it was, it's from the early noughties, I think.
Like David Fravor.
That's the one we was on
David
about.
Fravor, yeah.
2004, November.
Yeah, 2004. 20 years ago. So why now are you all talking about it? It's just...
Is that the TikTok that went from 80,000 feet to 80 feet in less
and
than a second?
submerged, I think, as well.
Yeah.
It's dodgy, like.
But so I'm going to try and steelman all these positions you've got, because I haven't got a say on either side of the fence. But what I would say is onto what you were saying. It's really interesting that they're bringing these all out in the media now because there's so much other shit going on. Is it a distraction? Are they putting these out there now because they don't want us to? I'd hate saying they as well because that's so controversial. Who's they? But
yeah.
People, the media putting these stories and this evidence and all these things out into the news now, which were from years ago. But why, like you say, why now? Is it not a distraction? Are they not trying to distract us from something else that's going on? Mm-hmm. The media are always trying to control the narrative, right?
Legacy media.
Legacy media,
Yes.
Sorry, yes.
Legacy media, yeah. Let's just get that one right.
Yeah.
I think the way that this is the way I've always viewed the world is when it comes to when you're alluding to they or whatever nomenclature you want to use, nothing's done for no reason. And that's why you know the old cliche is saying you got to read between the lines. Don't take it at face value. What's the objective here? And the moves that they make, it's not like tomorrow, it's a generation. So it's like the stuff that they're releasing now, it makes you think wonder why they're not doing it for our own benefit. That's for sure. I mean, I'll tell you what, the best way to baby step you into this is looking at technology, right? So we live in a era of technology now where if you break down decades, 40s to the 50s, 50s to the 60s, 70s, 80s, 80s, 90s, you look at the 2000s to where we are now, the technology just took a massive jump in the last 20 years. And the best way I would, if I was describing to somebody about, is there a possibility of exotic technology that we either know of or we are reverse engineering? I would go back to the evolution of technology. So after the end of towards the end of the Second World War, you had the Manhattan Project.
So let's talk about that. What's the Manhattan Project?
So the Manhattan Project was basically the United States developing the atom bomb. It was actually the Germans who figured out how to split the atom. They were the first to do it.
Yeah.
But I can't remember. There was two different ways of making it, and you either use heavy water or this other compound I can't remember. But basically, the Germans took the other route. Otherwise, they potentially could have built the atom bomb first, but I don't think they realised the full potential in it because they were doing other things, which I'm going to get onto, other technologies, the exotic weapons and the Wunderwaffe, as they call them, the Wunderwaffers, the Wonder weapons, the weapon that would end the war, even turn back the clock at the last minute. But obviously, the Americans were successful because they had uranium and plutonium and all the components and compounds needed to be able to build an atom bomb, whereas the Germans never really did. And I think they were trying to obtain heavy water from Norway at one point, and it was thwarted by like an Allied operation.
Right.
Because it's always like the when people have like game roomed the war, like if things could have been different, but America always would have built the atom bomb, so they always would have won. I think Oppenheimer's quoted as saying, "It's just a shame we couldn't drop it on Germany." But anyway, after the do you know what a really interesting thing to look at is as well is, you know, prior to the war, when you broke down all the countries of who was the most powerful in the world, I'm pretty sure Britain was like number 1 or 2, and in America was like way down the list, and by the end of the war they were number 1 because they had the atom bomb. They had so much resources in abundance. And
Does power come down to how many bombs you've got?
What's that? Sorry.
Does power? Is it down to economic value, or is it like
technology and what you've got? Yeah,
because they always talk about how many nukes you've got, like on a standby. So you're talking about North Korea and then Russia, and I've heard this on a few podcasts recently. I've been listening to that we're talking about they've got the upper hand because they've got this many nukes. And
who are you talking about?
Russia.
Yeah. Well, obviously, everybody's seen what happened last week with that new medium-range missile that they've developed, but it's hypersonic, and they said it's nothing in the West can thwart an attack.
Reaction.
There's nothing that we can do about it. But I guess when you're saying power, then what does that mean? Because I'm trying to not leapfrog ahead, right? Because I want to like keep
doing
everything.
a Trump. What do you call it?
The weave.
That's a canny weave. Well, we're talking about the Manhattan Project.
Yeah, I don't want to weave. I don't want to weave.
Well, that was my fault. I digress. We digress.
No. Because it's all interwoven.
Yeah,
that's the problem. But it's
interwoven,
like,
is it? It's all weaved in and out in it.
You see what I just did there, Jackie? I just did a weave. Weaving.
You go like
weaving
this,
to the
and then
west.
you go like that. You know. So
do you not think that they actually had that on bomb though, Schak? Because I'm convinced that they did. Because you know the lost scientists.
Who's they?
Germany.
No. Right.
Let's weave.
I'm trying to just go on. Right. So, okay. So Germany. This is allegedly, because some of it's unsubstantiated. Some of it is being corroborated, such as Operation Paperclip, when they took all the elite scientists like Werner von Braun, who actually went on to help NASA build the Saturn V rocket, which took, obviously, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins to the moon. But that was one project of potentially many. Now, Germany, when the National Socialists came to power in 1933, they went and had lots of expeditions. Some of them went to Antarctica. Some of them went to, I think, up the Himalayas and stuff like that, right? Now, there's this theory, again, I must say it's unsubstantiated, it's just a theory, that they were dabbling in exotic technologies as early as the late 1930s. And when we were walking in here, I seen something very interesting on your bag. Your bag says Thule on it, right? Now,
this episode is powered by Tenzing, the all-natural energy drink made with plants, not a science lab. It's clean, sustainable energy made with none of that dodgy stuff you find in other energy drinks. Now, let me tell you what happened when I got a delivery of their new flavour, Fiery Mango. Big crate arrives, I am buzzing, thinking I've got a load of cans to see me through the winter. I open it, one can. Turns out my wife nicked the rest. To be fair, I can't blame her. The Fiery Mango is banging. Juicy mango with a fiery kick of ginger and cayenne pepper. Basically sunshine in a can. And it's not just about the taste. 100% of your daily vitamin D, magnesium for vitamin D absorption, lion's mane for mood and focus, and 160 milligrams of caffeine to power you through the crash. So whether you're working, at the gym, or just surviving that 3 p.m. slump, Tenzing Fiery Mango has you covered. And listeners of this show get 30% off. Just head to TenzingNaturalEnergy.com and use the code BEAR30. That's BEAR30 for 30% off. Fire up your winter with Tenzing Fiery Mango. But seriously, hide your stash.
there was a secret society called the Thule Society, which was a German secret society, and it was whether it was led or there was a member of that society called Maria Osik, who allegedly was a channeler, and they channeled information technology from a star species from the Aldebaran constellation, I think it was, or the star system. again, this is allegedly, but this is what I've read, and they were told information on how to build anti-gravity propulsion systems.
Yeah.
Now, there is a project, again, this is fringe kind of theory stuff, called Deglocker, which was an anti-gravity device that was, I think it was near Breslau, which was, it's like modern day Poland now. Have you never played Call of Duty World at War? Do you not remember when they brought Nazi zombies out?
Oh, I didn't play that one.
Right. So this is how I ended up getting in all of this, right? Because in this I know
Call of Duty,
I know it's such a mad story, but in the game they interweave, they do the weave basically, the what would you call it? Like the theories of what the Germans were doing, because it's World War II. And I remember when my mate was like, oh, do you know when you complete the story mode, you've got to fight zombies, and that was just like, shut up, man, he's talking shit. And then obviously I completed the story mode, and sure enough, that you end up playing Nazi zombies, but they evolved the story. Then they started incorporating these theories that the Germans were working on exotic technology. And where it goes to, the point is that that they managed to actually crack the formula, and they were successful in building anti-gravity propulsion system, UFOs, UFPs, whatever you want to call them. And I think there's one on Google. Again, you can't verify if there's a real photo or not. It's called the Hanabu, and it's basically like a traditional flying saucer disc thing, right? And then what it's alleged is, which is weird, because you can actually go to the facility where this Deglocker was being built, and it's said to have contained element 115. Now, the mad thing about element 115 is, obviously, if you look up Bob Lazar, who said he worked at S4, and obviously in Groom Lake and Area 51, he was talking about element 115 in the 1980s before anyone had even been found, and now it successfully has. But I remember they were talking about it in this game, and in the game, right, this is what I find it interesting, because I'm a massive...
Element 115 in the game?
Yeah, so in the game, right, there's a weapon called the Wunderwaffe,
right?
The Wonder Weapon DG2, and it's powered by element 115, right? And this is how I ended up researching it and looking into it, right? And this came out in 2008, 2009.
Yeah. So
a lot's moved on since then, right? But basically, at the end of the war, this is what's alleged. The elite divisions, or the elite top-ranking officers of the SS in the Third Reich, obviously they all fled to South America. That is verified.
Yeah.
Obviously, some went to Argentina, some went to Brazil, and there is actually...
Villages where they're fully German-speaking.
Yeah, there's to this day, there's the little Bavaria, I think it's called, or something like that. I think Tim Kennedy went there.
It's up in the mountains, yeah.
And they
fully German-speaking.
They all speak German.
In Brazil?
Yeah, in Argentina. In the mountains.
Yeah.
Mad.
It's got their own community there, and they fled there after the war.
Yeah, so they're descendants of the SS members who obviously fled there, right? But then what is theorised is that, obviously, did you have a look and obviously how at the end of the war, there's the theory is that Hitler died in his bunker, but that's never been proven.
Oh yeah, there's
because again when the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union claimed we've got his body, when the Iron Curtain came down and the Soviet Union collapsed in '91, they found out that the remains were of a female, so no one actually knows for sure that he actually died there, and it's theorized that he got on a U-boat and lived out the rest of his days in Argentina. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Now, where this ties in with the weave and the technology is that, do you remember before when I was telling you about how they had expeditions to Antarctica?
Yeah.
So there was a part of the Antarctic Peninsula, the part that's close to Ushuaia, which is the bottom of Argentina. There was a part of Antarctica there called New Schwabia or New Schwabenland. And it's alleged there that that's where they were developing. Because you have to remember, by the 1944, 1945, the RAF and the US Air Force had free reign on them from the skies. They just bombed them to bits because they didn't have the resources to defend them anymore from the Luftwaffe to intercept or anything like that. So they were getting bombed left, right and centre. That's where all the V2 warehouses, the V2 facilities where they were building the rockets, they were like inside of mountains so that they were safe from getting bombarded. So it's alleged that they've took this technology and they took it to Antarctica, and that's where they've developed it further. And then, again, this is unsubstantiated, I think it's in 1946, or 47, the United States launched Operation High Jump with Admiral Byrd, and it was basically meant to be an expedition. I can't remember the number of people, large amount of staff that took loads of facilities down. You can look it up on YouTube. There's documented footage of what happened, but it's theorized that they came across some sort of unknown phenomenon, and I don't know if this is derived from Admiral Byrd's journal. I can't remember now, but it's something to do with they documented that they encountered an unknown phenomenon, this force of was it flying discs or something like that basically came out of the water, attacked them, that they couldn't defend themselves, and they were sent home with their tails between the legs.
What year was this?
This is in 1947.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what's alleged is, again, this is one. There's so many theories out there, and I know it's hard. I've been looking into this for so long, so it's hard to like just in like a 2-hour segment tell you about all of this. It's a very in-depth thing, and again, many people have different theories. But after that, after the Americans realised that, you know, what this faction or splinter group of what remained of the Third Reich, so to speak, they then made a deal with America, and then they collectively have worked together on space programs. There's a lot of people who think that Apollo 11 never went to the moon. I think personally that the 100% did. I think that it could be even further than that. I think it could be to the potential that, you know, many people have even theorized. Have you ever sat and thought about why the moon doesn't rotate? It's only like celestial object, I think, in the solar system doesn't spin on an axis. Everything else does. So we always see one side of the moon. You never see the other side of the moon. And I remember reading up some theories about like colonization on the dark side of the moon, because we'd never say it. We would never even know. I'll tell you what I have seen when I've looked up stuff, and this is like independent people with high-powered telescopes when they've pointed them at the moon. And I've seen some things. Of course, you know, you could be manipulating the footage. It's hard to substantiate, but questionable stuff. I think one thing that's irrefutable is like NASA has been caught red-handed doctoring photos that have been taken from like the Mars rover or satellite images from the moon, and it's like, well, why are you airbrushing stuff and covering it up? There's even stuff that's been blurred out. Why? What would you say, right, if there was a satellite photo taken of the moon and then there's a part of it blurred out? Why would you think
questions? There's questions there. I mean, first off, I'd have to think, what would the reason? How is it like pixelated blurred?
Like,
and every single picture.
Do you know when you see something graphic and it's blurred out?
Can you get it? Is it on internet? Or?
You'd have to have a proper look. It would be our old day. But basically, you know, if you see you're on, you know, on the news, and there's some graphic footage of somebody where they're getting stabbed, and it's blurred out, pixelated, blurred. There's pictures of that on the internet of where parts of the moon or Mars or whatever, even Antarctica, have been blurred out. And that's another thing about Antarctica. Obviously, it's the bottom of the world, and that's another thing that happened at the end of the war is they created the Antarctic Treaty, where nobody's allowed to like colonize Antarctica, basically. But you can't just go free roaming in Antarctica. Yes, you can get, like, because it's one place I really want to go. You can get on a chartered flight from Ushuaia and fly to the South Pole, or you can get on you can get a ship across Drake's Passage to the Antarctic Peninsula, and you can go and see the penguins and icebergs and all that stuff. But me and you just couldn't get on a boat, right, and just go free reigning around Antarctica. You're not allowed to.
Why? So you don't know. It's just that's what it is.
From what I've understood, what is being said is the reason why you're not allowed. It was because to protect the environment. Right. But I call Antarctica. It's like because it's at the bottom of the world. It's the unknown. There could be all kinds of shit going on there. You wouldn't know about it. I wouldn't know about it. And again, all of this information that I've collected is just from just looking and applying common sense to it. Now, I know I just told you a mouthful about the technology and stuff like that, right? Now I'm going to do another weave, right? So at the end of obviously the Second World War and that, and America was the superpower, you had obviously Roswell in 1947 in New Mexico. And obviously it's alleged there that they retrieved craft and they've been trying to either trying to or did successfully reverse engineer it. And America's technologies obviously went up, and this is when the nuclear arms race developed between the Soviet Union and the United States, which obviously culminated in the atmospheric test ban in 1963, I think, after the Soviets made the Tsar bomber, which was a 50 megaton hydrogen bomb. It was actually meant to be 100, and they halved it just before it was detonated because in case they blew the atmosphere up. Just because and if you look at the footage, it's crazy. Anyway, right? So you can see this timeline evolution of technology, right? And this is what, again, applying common sense to technology, because at the end of the day, when people look at like this unknown phenomenon, whether it's pertaining to technology, exotic technology, or extraterrestrial origins, life, and stuff like that, if you apply common sense, basically, in 1962, I think it was in 1960, do you know who Lockheed Martin are?
Yeah.
They're a defence contractor.
Yeah.
Made a lot of, obviously, defence technology. They made, in 1960, the SR-71, right? And to date, that's still the fastest jet that's ever flown. I think it could fly Mach 3.
From
right?
71.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is in 1962. It is now 2024. It's 62 years later.
We still haven't got anything.
You're telling me that we haven't made anything fast? But just applying common sense. Back then, did they have iPhones where you could call your grandma on the other side of the world and see her face? You're telling me in 62 years, we haven't been able to make anything faster than that?
Well, let me interject here. So, again, to strongman this, so we've got the story you've just said about that jet, which is nothing's been made faster since then, which is how many years?
62 years.
62 years, right? There's a theory out there that all these sightings that we're seeing, they aren't from another planet. It's us testing our own shit.
Yeah,
what do you
yeah.
think about that?
I've been
Pete.
waffling on for ages.
No, keep waffling, man. I mean, for me, when I'm looking at technology advancements and the curve of technology from the computer, like if you go into the museum in Manchester, you can see the first computer and it's massive. It's huge. And then now when you look at iPhones and that, and I understand that advancements switch and change, but during that period of time in the world, during the world wars, we had the stealth bomber that America just came out with that defied any radar detection. Where did that technology come from? Because it came around the time of Roswell. So were they testing the aircraft and people seen it and it looks like a disc and they're like, it's a flying disc?
I think the B-2 stealth bomber was decades after that. But they had the U-2 spy plane.
Yeah.
Then they had the SR-71. But I mean, they came up with those for reconnaissance. But they basically, like now, how we've got satellites everywhere. I mean, for Christ's sakes, Elon Musk got Starlink. You can get internet anywhere you want in the world by putting this thing down on the ground. They wanted to see what the Soviets were doing, so they developed reconnaissance aircraft, such as the U-2 spy plane. The Soviets, no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't shoot them down, and then that was superseded by the SR-71. And no SR-71 was ever shot down, because even if it was detected, I mean, this thing would fly at 70,000 plus feet. They'd have to fuel it in midair, because the way the fuselage was built, it's genius engineering. Because of the speed it was travelling, the bulkhead of the aircraft, the fuselage, when it would heat it up, it would expand. So when they filled it up on the runway, the fuel tanks weren't sealed. When it expanded, the fuel tank sealed because of the heat. So they would fuel it on the floor, on the ground, on the runway, and you'd be leaking jet fuel. And then once they got it up to cruising altitude, or well not at its max altitude, say like 40,000 feet, then it was be refueled again by
so it was leaking fuel when it took off.
Yeah, when it took off, because the way it was engineered, you have to understand, I mean, Mach 3 is like 2,500 miles an hour. When you've got that much resistance, the heat off the aircraft, that's why it was black and it was very slim to create as much resistance from the wind.
2,500 miles an hour. It's Mach 3.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's really fast. But that honestly, it's just an amazing feat of engineering and applying common sense. Look at where we are now. The internet, the smartphones. Like I don't fucking believe it. There's no fucking way in 62 years we've not made something better than that. Look at what Elon Musk's doing with rockets, man.
Yeah.
He's bringing them back and landing them, and it just doesn't make sense. So then the theory you ask yourself is, well, what have they developed and why are they keeping it secret? And I guess, again, doing another weave is go back to Nikola Tesla and the stuff he was doing in the 1920s. There's some technology that he was working on, like 0-point energy, where you can power a light, you can power your home forever from using the energy from the earth and stuff like that. And
You've got a theory on that, haven't you? Go on. You've got a theory about why we haven't got that now.
So
I want to hear that
again, applying common sense to it.
Okay.
And I'm sorry for everyone listening. I know it's fucking going all over, but my brain's like this. And
I'm going to pull it all back on in a minute.
I've got so many tangents, but it all makes sense in my head. I know it probably fucking doesn't, but it does.
I'm following you, so if I am, everybody else will be Schak.
All right, well, good then. So again, apply common sense. And what I like to do is when you have theories, try and see what factual evidence you can give to support that theory being potential reality, right? Yeah. If you look at the United States Secrecy Act of Inventions Act of 1951, which basically says if you patent a technology which poses an economic threat to the United States or a security threat, they can legally take it off you and suppress it. This is a law.
And when was that wrote into law?
1951.
Okay.
Right? So, let's just say you have a technology, and there's, I would ask anyone out there who's curious, look up the list of inventors who've invented technology who disappeared or something sinister or nefarious happened to them, or whether it was financial or physical stuff, physical harm and stuff like that. There's an actual list of inventors who came up with, I'm not going to call it exotic technology, but they came up with new inventions, and those inventions never seen the day of light. Now, if you apply 0-point energy, again, I'm not a physicist, so I'm going to give like a basic school grade application of this. School level of education, sorry. 0-point energy, right? So let's just say you can power a car infinitely. What happens to all the fuel companies overnight? They got that out of action, that's it. So that's, again, going back to what America's written in their law, economic stability. That would affect the economic stability overnight.
But Tesla was in the 20s, and we're talking about 51.
We're talking over 100 years ago.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is Tesla was 20 when he was creating this 0-point energy, right? But this law didn't get brought into for 31 years. So what happened?
So Nikola Tesla worked on a variety of technologies. Obviously, came up with AC, and I think he came up with DC current and AC, I think, and then I think I read something like Thomas Edison took credit for one. He took credit for some of his inventions.
Yeah. And Tesla died in his apartment.
He died broke.
Died broke in his apartment in New York, and was apparently, like they said, this at the time it was reported that he was losing his mind, so to speak.
Do you know who got all his after he passed away? The FBI went into his home and basically took all of his possessions, like his documents and that. And I'm pretty sure it was Donald Trump's uncle who did it, who ended up with all of his stuff.
Oh, you've mentioned this before. What was his name again?
Was it Fred? Fred Trump, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's his uncle.
Yeah.
Anyway,
check that.
Anyway, the point is that if this technology didn't exist, then why would you create a law to stop it from ever seeing the light of day? Because if you literally break it down, that's what it says. It's that anything that poses economic threat to the economic stability or the security. Now I can understand that because you can have someone
That's powered by water.
You've got people bloody making shatter in the houses and blowing the bloody houses up. Never mind making the super weapon, right? But if you apply that, I understand that. But like, if you look at, ask people to look at the inventors. Like, again, I've watched 50 to 100, maybe 200 hours of stuff on this, so it's hard to compact it into such a short segment because it's not a short topic you can talk about. But there's loads of inventors who've made vehicles, like cars that have ran on fucking water.
Oh yeah, no, I heard this story.
There was an inventor who ran one on urine or something like that, and these people just disappeared, and the technology's never seen the light of day. And the way I look at it is, okay, I'll try and apply basic common sense. Is like, well, why? Well, there's obviously a reason why. Think about it. And this is the thing, with this whole UAP stuff, right? I think the jump in technology that they might have is going from A to B, is like to the point where you're talking about like 0 point energy could be like a byproduct of like anti-gravity propulsion stuff, right? So if the public had that, then we would no longer depend on energy companies anymore, whether it be for you to fuel your car or power your house. So until they find a solution on how else they're going to get money, then I don't think that kind of technology will ever come out. And again, I'm applying basic common sense.
Right, let's get your take on all this, because Schak's just give us a basic rundown of where he sees himself, what his position is on this. You've been talking to me about this today, so I want to know. Just touch on a few things that Schak's just mentioned there.
Yeah.
What's your position? What's your view on it all?
What Schak's on about is going back to the war. Is they had there's various footage of the disc-shaped technology that they were working on in Nazi Germany at the time. And there's one called the Bell.
Yeah, the Glock.
You know that. Which is one you was talking about.
Yeah.
But the very term for me, zero gravity propulsion technology, back then, if somebody said that, nobody even knew really what that was.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So these guys were in tune with something that I believe wasn't from here, because that's why there was this race on the war. And for me, I believe that's why the scientists got taken over to the US and got taken out over to Roswell. And all of a sudden, there was footage of this atom bomb. And then Hiroshima was done as a sign to the world to say, this is what tools we've got in the back garden.
I'm really sorry. I understand what you're saying there, because you asked that before. So are you postulating that America couldn't complete the atom bomb without them?
Yes. And they already had the technology, and I believe, potentially, and again, it's just my theory based on what I know and what I've read, but I believe that was the whole scope of the war. So, for example, the wars that we've experienced in our time was a war on terror, but it was actually a war on power and oil. Yeah. And we know that because of how many barrels of oil were they pumping out of Iraq on a daily basis.
And there was no weapons of mass destruction.
And it was an illegal war as well.
And why is it that the UN weapons inspectors killed themselves? Both of them, by the way, the UK.
This is getting banned as fuck. This is getting 4 players, and 3 of them are going to be from us.
This is what we're on about. So you go down that rabbit hole, but for me, when you go back through history, in ancient India, there's scriptures and carvings of these things called Vishmana.
Yeah,
Vishmana is a flying, and literally, it's a rocket with flames coming out of the back of it, with a pod and a guy sat in it. This is in thousands of years ago in India. Yeah. There's certain carvings and places on the planet where you can see that basically there was something up in the sky back then. So this is even before technology came a thing where we was flying stuff. So like what Schak was saying, so what I did is I applied that same kind of theory that Schak's on about. I was thinking, well, technology is advancing, and we're not really sure on what our technology capabilities are. Yeah. But let's go back then. These guys, like the Nazca lines in South America, the Nazca lines, I don't know if you know what they are, but they're basically formations on Earth.
I've seen it
of like a massive eagle, a spider, various different animals, and you can only see them from above. Back then, there was no flying craft. Yeah. So why were they there? And again, nobody really knows why, but some theories are, well, these were obviously signs above to the gods, to whatever it is that was coming down. You would only create something that big. Like when somebody gets stranded on a desert island, what's the typical cliche thing that you see them do? Help on the sand. massive, so that a plane's coming over and can see them and they can rescue them off the desert island. Back then, thousands of years ago, the Nazca lines were done for what? What are they showing up above? Who's going to see it? But it's that big, that massive, and that intricate that it's obviously something. So I see these things from history in the past, and we look at these things now that are going on around us. Yeah, technology's advanced, but these sightings have been going on even way before our time, in my opinion. When you see these scriptures and these accounts that are carved and that are put on drawings that clearly show something. A guy in a rocket shaped machine with a glass pod and flames coming out the back of it. There wasn't not even a car back then. There was no machinery.
Well, when you said intricacies there and on scale, the first thing that came to my mind there was Ancient Apocalypse, that new thing with Graham Hancock, and he's talking about, well, I mean,
the Younger Dryas Impact.
Younger Dryas Impact, and also talking about, let's just talk about the pyramids, you know, True North, stones which were hundreds of tons heavy, like, and they said that the weight was, I can't remember how much 1 ton was. It was
50. Each block weighs a certain amount of tonnage.
Ridiculous amount of tonnage.
The pyramids of Giza.
Yeah.
70-ton blocks of granite.
Yeah. So basically, and the cuttings are so
fine,
intricate, and it's facing 0.3 degrees, 0.03 within a degree of pointing true north. This is thousands of years ago.
Lined up with the Orion's belt.
Why?
The chambers.
That was done. That was done on purpose.
Why is the question?
So this is. I'm coming back to it again. We're going a bit off on a tangent. What I'm saying is a bit of a weave. That was a nice little round weave. But it's all things that we have theories for, which we can't really put our fingers on, because obviously we weren't there and it was so long ago. But I find that one the most. That's the one that fascinates me the most. The pyramids.
What, the pyramids of Giza?
Yeah.
Do you want to go on this one?
You go on this one because I've got Chichen Itza in Mexico to go off the back of this one.
All right. So the way I would look at it with the pyramids of Giza is such a fascinating structure, or structures. So we are told that the pyramids of Giza were built by slaves. Where's the quarries anywhere near it?
Hundreds of miles away.
Where did they harvest all this granite from, and where did they get from? The precision, we still to this day can't build them.
Yeah.
So they theorised that, we just forgot about it. We just don't know how to do it anymore. Okay. Now the thing is with that is what Pete was alluding to before is the knowledge of astronomy, that the vast wealth of knowledge of astronomy that they had before with even going into space and all of that stuff, and it just reeks to high heaven that they were an advanced civilization of. I don't believe they were from here, to be honest. I think, and the ancient Samaria and stuff like that. I've read lots of books about that time, and when you look at it from from a perspective of trying to simplify it and stuff, when you look at Graham Hancock's a good example. He is proposed new theories and he's banned from going to the pyramids of Giza. We as people are supposed to propose, we all thought the world was flat one time, right? What's the harm in finding out the truth? The only thing that comes to mind to me is the truth is something which poses a threat to the status quo of this, of our life, and that's the only explanation you can have. What's the harm in potentially looking at a new theory? I mean, we do it all the time with science. Once we thought this was a thing, and now we changes to that. Just like I said before, the world was flat. Now it's not. Although some people believe it is. I'm not one of those. So if you're flat ever, don't talk to us. No, I'm joking, right? But
he's ostracized, isn't he, Graham Hancock? He's ostracized from the community.
This is the thing. Why?
Yeah, because they don't like change.
All he's doing is proposing a theory.
Yeah, a theory. That's all he's not saying.
All he's doing, he's not harming anybody.
No.
All that science is only theory, isn't it? Theory with different, kind of experiments and tests. And everything is a theory. Nothing's actually confirmed. But the more that we seem to discover through science, the more we think how clever we are and how certain we can be. Whereas wise people, the more that we actually start to know, which is why when you start to read and you go into different rabbit holes and you start to be open-minded with your theory, because science is very closed-minded with its theory. No,
It never used to be, though.
We did this test, that's it. Whereas if you're open-minded with your theory, then you can explore different avenues to say, well, what's actually capable out there? And it's okay to have an opinion, but it's okay to accept another. And that's why I like speaking with Schak, and that's obviously why we ended up, and obviously Waf's not here, but why we was having this conversation is it's nice to have a debate about a subject matter, but not everybody thinking that what they know is right. If you piece everything together, like what Schak said, the basic question there, and why I always looked into it as a kid, is because I seen one first of all in the sky, and then I was like,
Whoa, go on, talk about that.
well...
Talk about that. Don't push past that.
I've seen five. I've seen five. I've seen one recently with my mum in Ibiza.
All right, well, talk us through that first one then, because I didn't know this. I don't think.
So the first one I was with my mates, a place called the Sandhills in Bury.
It wasn't a fireworks bonfire.
No, it was semi during the day. It was like getting towards sunset, and there was this thing hovering over the top of Holcombe Hill in Bury, and it was moving left and right. And we was looking, we was like, "What's that there?" And it actually moved left and right like this. Went backwards and forwards 3-4 times, and all of a sudden it just went zoom and it shot off, and it literally went up through the clouds, gone.
When was this?
In a second. This was 1994, 95. I was about 14, 15. So that's when I really started, because I knew as a kid, I knew what I seen. Like, I ain't no plane or helicopter do that. Now, this wasn't on gear or drinking or anything. I was on my fucking BMX at 14, 15, and then that made me start to like be interested in what this is. And then I've seen a few more over my time, but it's the similar kind of description that you hear, because these things are obviously able to move around and do things that doesn't look right.
So for me, there's two theories. There's either we've created them and we don't know that they're not releasing the information about that we've created that technology, or we're channeling knowledge from another place.
Mm-hmm.
What's the theory what's your theory on it?
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. So to go back to what I was alluding to before about the technology,
Yep.
and how, for instance, the SR-71,
yeah,
62 years ago.
Yeah.
I personally think that most of the things that people say it's just exotic technology, black projects.
When you say exotic technology, can you explain that? Because I don't really know what you mean by that.
Basically, this is technology that is not released to the public.
That we've created on Earth.
We've created. Now, all you got to do is, have you seen the Pentagon failed its audit for the 7th time in a row?
No.
Right, so they get audited. They failed it 7 times, and they just failed it again. Now, can you remember the day before 9/11 on September 10th? Donald Rumsfeld come out and said that they couldn't account for $2.3 trillion dollars.
Yeah.
Right, this is over 20 years ago, so that's even more money today.
Yeah,
you're telling me where the fuck's his money gone? Right, I mean,
so your theory. Sorry,
so the theory is so a black project is money's funneled through a back door so they can fund these projects, right? So I think there's been testimony of many people who've come forward, but the thing is about this area of theories and stuff like that, you do get people who are full of shit, and that's the problem, is trying to decipher who's real and who's not. And some of it is intention seekers, some of it's misinformation.
Okay.
Now, for instance, you've had people like Luis Elizondo and David Grush who've come out and said that they've been given permission by the Pentagon to speak, and I'm like, I don't fucking believe that.
I don't believe that either.
Again, it ties into the theory of why are you releasing all this UFO footage and having hearings in Congress? It just reeks of agenda. You're telling me the Pentagon said you can go out and talk about... They wouldn't let you talk about it unless they wanted you to talk about it. Do you understand? So what I'm saying is I believe that there's advanced technology, and again, if I'm simplifying it, I'll go, right, well, what evidence have you got to support that? We've got mobile phones. You could do stuff that was all science fiction at one point, and they haven't made an aircraft in 62 years. That's faster than the SR-71. That's fucking ridiculous.
Well, it's okay. Let me steelman this. Why do we need one faster?
because the one thing about human the human psyche and we as a collective society is we have to constantly evolve.
Yeah.
If you're not technologically moving forward, you're going backwards.
Unless only if there's a monetary incentive, though, right?
It depends who's the driver, who's in the driving seat.
Because these advance because people buy the next iPhone.
Okay, I guess a better way of looking at it is it's power, monopolization, staying in control. Whoever has the best technology, and this is why AI, I don't think it'll ever get regulated, because whoever has the best AI will have the most power in the world. So let's just say we're all superpowers here. I'm Russia, you're America, Pete's China.
Yeah.
Me and you decide, right, we need to regulate AI because it's getting dangerous, right? And there's a lot of evidence to support that thesis, right? But Mr. China over here, he doesn't do it. He's going to have a massive upper hand on both of us. So we can't allow that to happen.
down.
So then we won't unregulate it. So we're on a freight train running down a hill, going towards the edge of a cliff. Or like us, we're like in the middle, we're like a herd of buffalo hurtling towards a cliff and we're in the middle. So by the time we realise what's happening, it's too late.
But yeah, no, there's another theory on the plane thing though, because if you think about advancements of aerospace, or just let's talk about the Concorde, right? The Concorde was the fastest
Commercial jet,
right? And we pulled that because it wasn't worth it. It wasn't
financially
So we
financially
stopped.
viable. Yeah.
So that's my theory for this.
That's what they say about it
from
not
this
being
plane from the
financially
50s.
viable, but there was executives and business people getting on that and flying to New York, no problem. Look at how many kids now are flying business class and first class compared to back in the day. I don't think Concorde was stopped because it wasn't financially viable. I think there was something else behind it.
Would you like to enlighten us?
Was that,
Come on, you can't just fucking see that. Like
That's the public narrative, right? That's what was presented to us.
Yeah, I think with that, I'm backing up what Schak was saying about advancements of technology. I think they needed to curb that back and pull that back because that was a big advancement. And then when you start doing supersonic travel around this planet, all of a sudden people are getting around and moving around a lot more faster, a lot more quicker, a lot more efficient. And then they're disclosing some of that technology they do have. I do believe there's that element, but there's no explanation for that footage that I've seen that David Fravor, the Commander, Air Force General for the US Navy, when he talks about his experience of 20 years as an Air Force pilot and the footage that you see and how quickly this thing maneuvers, it's impossible that a human being could be inside that machinery there.
turn to mush.
You just turn to nothing. So there's that element. So that's why I believe
Let me steal that
it.
though.
Go on.
You fucking make a video.
What?
Eh?
That could be made.
No, it was seen by 4 pilots.
I know, but
and it was recorded.
What I'm saying is, back to Shaq's point, and by the way, I'm trying to steel man this.
Yeah.
I'm trying to steel man it. Those 4 people could be fucking all in cahoots. They can make that video, no bother.
So what's the agenda then?
Why would they make it?
That's what I'm saying. You always have to ask why. What's the agenda? What's the play here? Why would they? Okay, so let's just go with that theory. Let's just say they are fabricating it. Why?
What's in their interest is
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
This comes back to Bob Lazar because Bob Lazar never got anything. He didn't.
That was what I was going to say about when I was talking about in this game, so to speak. There's a lot of bullshitters, but there is the few genuine people, and I think Bob Lazar is one of the most credible people because of
rocket
he
scientist,
was
isn't it?
talking about stuff that came out later to be true. Again, element 115.
Yeah.
Other technology, I think the fingerprint scanner things. That
When you go into the building, they had
in
that, and he
S4.
described them with them like spikes, and he described it, and he drew it. He drew a picture of it, and then it came out later. They found a picture.
Yeah.
What was his name? Who was doing the documentary?
Oh shit!
With a beard.
Oh
yeah. Anyway.
Jeremy Corbell.
Jeremy Corbell.
Corbell.
Yeah.
So-
I was going to say Jeremy Corbell.
That's what I thought you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely Jerry Corbell.
But he, and another thing as well is he lost everything.
Yeah, so this is the thing. There was no incentive. He didn't want it. When he came on the Rogan podcast, and first time I saw him years ago, 2016, you could see how nervous he was. He almost didn't want to do it. And He was like, I don't want any of this. Said he was physically nervous, didn't he? I don't want any of this attention, the publicity I'm getting. His house got raided by the FBI, like so much stuff. He lost everything.
Had nothing to gain.
Nothing to gain.
So
And he
he's
hasn't made
credible.
anything. There's no financial incentive for him. So again, what's the agenda? For people like that, I find that super credible.
Did you have you been to Navada before?
Yes.
No.
Burning Man.
Right. So I don't know. There's something about that place. I went there because I went to Vegas.
Of course I have. I've DJed Vegas twice, but I've just been to Vegas and that's it.
It's just something about the desert. Like I drove from LA to Vegas, and
Nice drive that.
beautiful, really nice. And I remember the sun was just setting over the peaks of the valleys, and there's a smell of the desert. It's just something unique, and I don't know, the energy I felt there. Really magical place. But originally Groom Lake, its exclusion zone was very small, and it's because of Bob Lazar. They were like every Thursday night or Wednesday night, I can't remember which day it was. They do the test run on the new prototypes of the technology that they're developing. His mates were like, "Oh, they're full of shit." Obviously, his phone's tapped because I think this is how they found out. His wife was cheating on him or something like that.
Yeah.
Because his phones were tapped.
Yeah.
And he took his friends up onto this mountain peak to watch. And I'm sure he said on Rogan that he filmed it on just an old video camera. And that's how they caught him. And then the exclusion zone now, it's like 50 kilometers or something. It's ridiculous. No one can get anywhere near it. And it makes you ask, well, what exactly are the keeping there? And there's many theories, if you want to really go deep in the hole, it's like,
Come on,
it's meant to have 50 levels underground and that, and at the bottom levels, I remember, do you know what it is? There's a film Netflix, what's it called? It's filmed like the Blair Witch in first person, where they sneak into this guy's house and they get his security pass to get in, and then they put these like suits on so the body heat is it makes them look cold, so that they sneak in basically Area 51. And they go down to the ground levels, and it just gets proper creepy. And there's this part, right, that I find really weird, where like there's this cave and there's all these children's toys and clothes.
Where is this? Sorry, I've lost where we are. Yeah.
So there's basically you ever seen the Blair Witch?
Like
Yes.
Blair Witch
I
Project.
can't remember what it's called. I don't know if it's Area 51 or whatever.
Right, okay.
These kids basically break in.
Right.
And it's filmed in first person, like the Blair Witch.
Yeah.
So the what's that? There's a term, or not a term. They give a name to that flight that goes from the airport to out to Area 51 to Groom Lake. It's a red plane. Can't remember the name of it. People have given it a name. But these kids basically sit and start doing recon on this plane and following staff members home. They find a guy who works there. They sneak into his house when he's asleep, steal his fucking pass,
Right.
his credentials
Okay, that
to
makes
get
sense.
into the base.
Yeah.
And they basically, to evade detection and that, like they come up with these like makeshift suits that basically hide their body heat, and they basically
That
get
one.
the Jeanette Airlines. It's got a proper name.
Yours?
Like I can't remember I've heard people give it like a different name. You know how like Jeffrey Epstein had the Lolita Express.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to talk about him, but you get my point, right?
He could be an alien.
But these kids basically get in and they get in the bottom level, and then the bottom thing for me is really weird. It's just the fact that they get into this cave and it's like a warm, humid environment, and then there's all these kids' toys and clothes, and then they go in and they find a hive of these fucking greys, and one of them sits up and alerts all the rest of them, and all hell breaks loose on the base, and fucking the base gets fucking flipped upside down and they get abducted, and then the film ends. I'm gonna say, but like when it comes to technology, like what you were talking about, like yes, you've got there is absolute truth. All this footage could be fabricated, 100%. But then why? What is the objective? So you can look at it on both things. It could be real, and if it is real, why are they showing us it? Because they're not doing it for no reason. And if it's fabricated, why are they doing that?
So my theory is, do you remember when there was it the New York Times released that first piece. It was like a couple of years ago, and it was FBI released documents from Area 51, and everyone was like, "Whoa, what the fuck's this?" But it was like very obvious. It was in the New York Times. I'm sure it was the New York Times, and there was theories like, "Okay, this is." Some people are going, "Oh my god, this is amazing." Some people are going, I was one of them going, "Why? Why would they do that? Why would they release that?" And so this is my theory. Something else is fucking going on in the world that we're not supposed to know about. So it's a distraction.
What, like Ocean Gate?
Similar to Ocean Gate.
That was fucking weird, that. I still couldn't get my head around that Ocean Gate, that submarine. Everyone was talking about it for 7 days, and then all of a sudden, just stopped talking about it. It was just dodgy. You know, my men, they knew that the people were dead well before they said that they were.
The billionaires that died.
Remember the submarine that.
Oh,
died.
yeah.
But that's what I just sat and thought, like, all everybody's talking about was this fucking submarine, and I'm like, I don't know, it was weird.
But it's, I think there's a level of distraction that can be
100%.
placed in the media. I don't know why, and it's just a theory. But you know, sometimes you have to go with your intuition. And my intuition on that release of the Pentagon was releasing documents on UFO sightings or on extraterrestrial activity or whatever the fuck it was, or craft or whatever. And I was just like, why? What the fuck is the point in them releasing that? Why the fuck would they, like, what, again, like we're talking about incentive or like motive. Why? The only thing I can think of is they want us to focus on that. They want us to talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's drip feeding the information as well, because if these...
But why? Why though?
Well, first of all, the government departments, so it's like ATIP, yeah? So, they developed that department, so Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. So the US was aware that there was things that they didn't know what they were. So that, for me, why are you going to create that department? Why are you going to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars in that department? So you're obviously aware of something. It's like there's footage back from the 40s or 50s in Washington where...
Oh, the Washington, DC, the DC flyover.
Back then.
Yeah.
They fly over and they just go off radar. And again, when Schak alluded to 9/11 before, the one thing about all of that,
they did it the day before, and then the world changed.
It's the most...
So everyone forgot about it.
Protected airspace in the world, yeah? And they didn't know what it was. So when they've got these departments and when they're investigating the UFO and then they change the UFO to UAP, yeah? Do you know why they changed it to UAP? Because a lot of them became submersible in the water. So they just didn't know what these things were. So to be a bit more direct to what it is that they're looking at, they changed it from a UFO because they're no longer a flying object, the unidentified aerial phenomena, because they could submerge themselves in the water and sometimes go into the ocean and disappear. The David Fravor account for me, when I listened to what he's saying, I was saying this to you earlier, Jacky, and it's what you were saying before, Schak, is... we don't know anything, but what we do know is that these things have been about and documented since before we even had technology like phones and bombs and all the rest of it, by ancient civilizations. They're carved into rocks. Easter Island, they don't even know how them heads got
Oh,
there.
yeah, that blew my head off.
So many things.
Easter Island's fucking crazy.
When you look at it, you just think, why are they drip feeding the information now? I think because you can't avoid now that we're getting footage and we're capturing these things and they're being seen. It's like years ago, there was an article, and this is an example of what Schak were given before, is this was in the national newspaper and it was in the local newspaper. And here's another example when I did see it. The same night that I seen flashing red lights over the wind farm in Bury, Scout Moor, that evening down south, I forget which town it was in, there was a woman washing her pots in a kitchen, and she had this flashing blue lights and this massive bang. And the article was in the paper. It's been removed off the internet now. You can't even get it anymore. One of the wind turbines, there was a loud smash, and everybody came out of the houses, and she come out and she got interviewed by the paper, and she said there was loads of flashing blue lights rapid in the sky, and then all of a sudden there was this bang. They came outside and the wind turbine was bent, and one of the propellers of the wind turbine was gone, disappeared. 65 foot long steel blade
Well, from like
off a wind turbine.
wind turbine.
Gone. And that night when that account was taking place, there was orange lights flashing over the wind farm in Bury, because I was hiking at the time, and I seen them weird through the clouds. And down south, that's what that happened. And the picture of the turbine, the news reporters went there, took a picture of it, and you could see it. One of the blades were bent, one was straight, and the other blade was completely missing. And there was no wreckage of anything. And even if, and the MOD came out in the paper and they said, yeah, we was running test flights in the area that night, so maybe that was some of the lights that you've seen. So going back to what Schak's saying with advanced technology, okay, fine, so you're doing tests. What the fuck can hit a 65 length steel blade at the standard speed of a jet and take the blade with it?
That's kind of mad, like.
That's pretty mad.
That's what I'm saying.
What year was that?
That was about 15 years ago. Yeah, I went back to try and get the article. You can't get it anymore, but I'll try and dig something out where I did have pictures on my old laptop. But that night, they were saying that whatever it was, obviously had something that it was assessing to do with wind farms, because back then the wind farm in Bury had not been there that long. But there's pictures of the trucks bringing these blades in Bury to build the wind farm, and they're on an 18-wheeler trucks. These blades, Schak, are like that. They're massive. And when you go to a wind turbine next, just have a look and you just watch it when it's spinning, and you imagine something hit that, the blade was gone. So whatever it was that was magnetic, obviously it's got to have been, because where the fuck's the blade? It wasn't in a field, it wasn't in a house, there was no like if a plane had hit it would have just smashed to pieces. There would have been the usual trail marks that you see, jet fuel burning, all the rest of it. So there's accounts like that where you get a statement and you actually see a picture of something. Like, how do you explain that?
Yeah, that's
what technology could we have that could do that? And then the David Fravor one for me, you know, hovering at 80,000 feet, coming down to 20,000 feet in a second. And then he tried to lock the new radar that was on these jets that they were testing. The radar couldn't lock onto it. It was locking. Every time he was trying to get a fix on it, he was locking off. And his account matched with the video footage that they've got. And this thing went into the water. It was the size of a Boeing 737, and the foam on it was coming up from underneath the sea, and then it came out and just went boof. And he gave his, because of his expert knowledge, how fast that thing moved.
You could hear his reaction on the video as well when
nobody has
he's
anything
screaming.
Like that.
Yeah.
So then it's on the flip side. I think there's technology that we're definitely suppressing and hiding for sure, because these drones that they fly around now. The weapons get dropped off anywhere on the planet now, in pretty much within an hour and 90 minutes, 2 hours, anywhere, boom, done. And they're doing controlled, you know, missile drops and that now with drones. It's gearing towards Skynet, but these accounts that go that far back, that technology was way too advanced for anything that we've got. Now we've got these, and that's a phone, yeah, and we've got bombs, and we've got all these cars and things like that, but we're talking about something that maneuvers when a specialist commander who served in 5 tours of Iraq.
He's got credentials.
He doesn't stutter in his words, and when you watch his eye contact and when he's talking about what he witnessed, and he's talking about his expertise, and he gives definitive, like, movements in which this craft's moved and the speed and the distance of how it's done, and saying his account was, one thing that he said is that was definitely not anything that we've got here. And then when you look up above and you look and you think that when they did Hubble's space telescope and they were testing how powerful Hubble were, bearing in mind that they developed it accidentally to be as good as what it is, it actually turned out better than what they planned. But when they was testing it, astronomers, they said, right, okay, let's pick the darkest patch of sky, let's shoot the telescope there and let's see what it comes back with. And I've got the image on my phone. It's a well-known image from footage of the pictures from Hubble. And it came back of this dark patch of sky. And when they got the image, it's 3,000 galaxies on this one. So basically they were trying to give an example of how small that patch of sky is. And they said, if you get a needle, basic needle, that's basically a dot of where we shot that telescope, and there's 3,000 galaxies there, and in each galaxy there's over 2 million, 3 million stars, and we think that we live down here alone.
Well, he has a question.
There's no way.
My head hurts.
He has a question to ask you, Jacky, is do you think either because it's the good old question is, what's more terrifying, thinking we're the only people we're completely alone in the entire universe or multiverse, or that the multiverse universe is streaming with life? Now, what piece of evidence would it take you to believe that? I mean, I should ask you first, really, like what you believe and what you think. But what evidence would it take you to believe that we aren't alone?
So I think there's two. Wait there, let's just go. There's two parts to this. I would say being alone physically and being alone with some sort of technology where we're streaming it from another. I don't know. Insert the word. Another knowledge base from another fucking
species.
Another species, whatever, wherever that is. I don't know whether it's like this. Do you know what I mean? Like not looking like this, but like physical people things being here, that have potentially crashed in a crash, and then they've took them and they've got them in this fucking base or whatever. That's one thing. And then you've got another thing where you've mentioned it before, where we are streaming some sort of consciousness, which is helping us create this technology. And I don't know what I'd need in terms of evidence, but if I have to be completely honest and be candid, I don't think we've actually got any evidence where we can say it, put our fingers on and go, that is evidence.
Well,
that's my honest answer.
No, of course. And I understand, and that's what I'm asking you. The way I would retort to that is, some people will say, right, well, if there's all these aliens out there and stuff like that, and there's all this technology, why has nobody come out and talked about it, right? Imagine you're the president of the United States, right? And you are aware that there's these unknown entities, whatever you want to call them, right? Species, whatever, who are coming to our planet, and there's nothing we can do to stop them. Imagine telling the public that there's these people who will live out there and they can come here and do whatever they want to at any time. People will have a meltdown.
A lot of religion goes out the window as well, doesn't it?
Of course, and that's another aspect to a degree. Although, like, I mean, if you look in if you look in the Bible and they had the Elohim, people who came from the sky and stuff like that, whilst I'm not religious myself, there's a lot of interesting aspects. How, like, for instance, again, I'm going to try not weave too much, but how all ancient literature pretty much talks about this deluge, the Great Flood, which touches on the Younger Dryas impact, which Graham Hancock's talked about, right? But there's other stuff, like you were talking about the Vimanas before. I think it was Victor Schauberger who said he figured out how they worked. It was through mercury and using water, spinning it in a certain vortex or something. In a certain way, it would create a vortex. But, like, you look at the ancient scriptures, there's blue people in the sky. Like, where the fuck's that coming from?
That's what I'm saying.
These blue people flying around in the sky, and I'm like, okay, so back in the day, there's no iPhones and that. So you're looking at, would you pass as what flavour then, by the way?
You've got
passion fruit and
fiery mango.
Dragon.
And what's that red one?
That is pineapple and passion fruit.
They're the best ones.
So
I'm going mango.
So you know, you don't have no iPhone, so you draw what you see, right?
But not necessarily. You draw stuff that you make up in your imagination. We do that now.
But there's people from all over the world in different parts of the world. I mean, like, how come there's pyramids in different continents at different time periods when they had no way of physically getting there? How the fuck did that happen?
No, and I agree with that.
So you've got, like, obviously in Peru, Egypt. Have you heard about the Bosnian ones as well?
Yeah. I didn't know about them until recently.
Newly discovered ones.
Yeah.
So these, why specifically is a pyramid shape? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. There's so many questions, but the way I try and look at it is because some people might find it hard to take in and comprehend, but
it is hard to comprehend.
Where do all pyramids point? Where do all pyramids point?
Yeah, no, true north. Yeah, no, that was my point before.
Yeah.
That's the only. So that's evidence for me. That's evidence of a technology we don't have now. We know we can't build the pyramids like they were built then.
It's not even just the pyramids, mate. It's fucking like the Temple of Baalbek in is it in Greece? I think.
Have you been to Chichen Itza in Mexico?
No.
Have you been?
I've never been to Mexico.
Okay. Right, I went December 2013, Christmas Day. did a day trip with Mish, went down there, and the energy there. I've been to Angkor Wat as well.
Talk us through the energy. What do you mean?
Like, you're talking 10,000 years ago. Again, the blocks, the building. There's 365 steps up to the top of the central pyramid where they used to communicate from the top to this big civilization. Bearing in mind that these guys went overnight. They don't know why. 365 steps, and there's 4 sides to the pyramid representing the 4 seasons. And the god that they worship was Kukulkan, which is like a reptilian god. And there's a certain time of the year, I think it's the 21st of December, winter solstice is when that calendar ended. There was obviously a big build-up towards that. People was going, is the world going to end? And obviously the films come out and stuff. Some theories, again, believe that this is the calendar of consciousness to a degree, and that there's a big shift in human consciousness, and that's what's going to be changing, or it's going to go in a positive way or a not so positive way. But there's a part in the grounds of Chichen Itza where the sun rises. I think it's where the sun sets or the sun rises, and it goes perfectly in between these 2 granite pillars on a certain day every year. And it drops right in between these 2 pillars. And when the sun sets, it reflects off the corner of the stone pillars. So it lights up Kukulkan, and it goes down the steps as if this lizard's moving down the steps, and the head at the bottom of the steps lights up where the sun hits it. But the reflection of the steps cause like a reptilian, jagged kind of back on the silhouette of this entity that they worship. These guys are building all this. We've not even built the wheel, man. The wheel was not even invented. And these guys are building structures with that much intricacy and that much precision, with that much relevance to celestial bodies that are going on around us. We didn't even have telescopes. And these guys are doing this.
You can imagine how much of the sky they saw back then. You know, we didn't have light
pollution.
Yeah.
Imagine what the skies looked like back then.
Yeah.
You can't even comprehend. On a good night at home, I'll come out, or in the morning when I go to the gym, and if it's been like a clear night, I look up and I'm amazed. But you can imagine that somewhere like that.
Yeah.
All them years ago, man. The understanding of you've been talking about like astrology. What's it called? Like what's the word? I've gone blank. The fucking
Cosmos.
Universe.
The cosmos, yeah. The understanding of the cosmos back then, and we can't even comprehend it because I feel like we've got this kind of narrow-minded view because we get up, we go to work, we come home, we've got this like we're in this like we're kind of trapped a little bit, right?
Rat race.
It is a rat race, and we are distracted, and I don't know what I think about their connection to the rest of the universe back then, because we can never put ourselves in their shoes. But I do think there's something to be said about their understanding of that and our understanding now, because I think we've lost something. I don't know what it is. We've lost something, whether that's knowledge, whether that's technology, whether it's obviously both. I think we've lost something.
And I think this is a really good time to mention it, especially with what's happening in the world. There's people have talked about extinction events. Have we got to a point every time and we've destroyed ourselves and then had to start again?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like okay, so you look at like the evidence for ancient civilizations with advanced technology. So let's just say, if we're going to go with the hypothesis that the Egyptians, the ancient Sumerians, were either extraterrestrials or they were advanced humanoids. Either they just fucked off, left everyone, or there was some sort of cataclysm and we had to start from zero again. And we're not far from that now with what's going on in the world. So like, and I think it was Elon Musk who was talking about it, like you've got people all over the planet who know how to do stuff, but if you like take certain people apart, there's like a chain of, not a command, but like a person can know how to build a car, but they might only know how to build one portion of that car. So if this person dies, then you lose the knowledge of it. If everything's eradicated, and that's how you ended up starting from zero again. But I think that going back to your point that we've lost something. I just think that we human beings. We should be so much more advanced, or we're very special. And in the sense, what I mean by that is our capabilities are massive, and we are suppressed deliberately. And I mean, like, sometimes I remember reading this book about, you know, extraordinary things that have happened to humans and that, and you think about the human genome and how we're built and stuff like that, right? I wanted to ask you this. What's your opinion on Darwinism?
So my theory, well, I'll tell you my theory on evolution.
Cool. Yeah,
next
okay.
That's all right. I believe very much in the stoned ape theory.
What's that?
So the stoned ape theory is the theory that apes, I can't remember how many years ago we're talking, but we obviously, this is well before human beings. I need to get the dates on this, but basically chimps and apes, they were just investigating their surroundings, and they found mushrooms, and they were eating mushrooms based on the lack of food there, and the mushrooms they were magic mushrooms, obviously, right? Psilocybin. Yeah. Well, I think there was a few different ones, but psilocybin for sure. And from there, their brain developed. But then there's also a side theory on this, that the increase in the human brain size was so rapid in such a short space of time. Was that to do with the mushrooms that the stoned apes were eating, or was it to do with interference from something else?
I think...
So growth of the human brain.
To touch on the latter part of that is, what evidence do we have to support that? So there's more questions than answers, but
there always is.
There always is, like everything. But I think what I find fascinating is okay. So we run with Darwinism. Do you know what blood type you are?
Yeah, I give blood. I think I'm A.
A what? Positive.
So I'll tell you in 2 seconds. Blood type.
I'm positive.
Yes,
I'm A positive. Mish is O positive. Yeah. Or O negative.
What?
Is he O negative? No, O positive.
Who?
Mish.
Oh, Mish. All right. Okay. Yeah.
Keep going, I'm going to find out.
I love how he's looking at them.
I want to know.
So the thing is, when you've got obviously positive and negative. Like, I'm AB positive, so I've got the second rarest blood type. But I'm a universal receiver, so I can have anybody's blood, which is mad. But then, when you look at the blood types, right? So you've got like negative and positive. So if you test negative, that's rhesus negative. Obviously, where the fuck did that blood come from?
A positive.
Right. So there's that for a start, right? Then there's the DNA. So scientists have come out and say that a massive proportion of our DNA is junk DNA.
It's what, sorry?
Junk DNA. So why the fuck's it there? So it's as if we have DNA. They just allude to it as junk DNA.
I don't know what that means. What do you mean by that?
There's just DNA that we don't use, but why the fuck's it there?
Right, okay.
Then there's...
It's obsolete.
Like the brain, we only use...
It was a certain percentage of the brain, so you have to ask, well, we've been engineered this way.
Yeah.
Well, if we didn't need it, why the fuck's it there? So it's as if almost did somebody turn it off, and for what reason?
Yeah.
And it's like, have you ever watched Prometheus?
Yeah.
Film, yeah.
Right. So brilliant. Have you seen the uncut version?
No.
Yes, I have the extra scenes.
Have you seen the speech dialogue at the end?
You're gonna have to remind me, but I've definitely seen it.
So the thing is about this. So obviously, for those who don't know, so Prometheus is part of the Alien universe, the film franchise, and it's the prelude to all of the Alien films, right? And why I like this film so much is it alludes to the either ancient astronaut theory or the Anunnaki theory, right? So basically, these scientists discover these murals all around the world. I think in the film there's one in the Isle of Skye in Scotland. Yeah, and they find this mural and all these murals, these big tall beings, and they're all pointing at this star constellation, and they figured it out, which is funny actually, that it's in the Zeta Reticuli star system, which is allegedly where these grey fucking things come from. But anyway, whatever. So they think it's an invitation. So they end up going there on this voyage, and I think they've got like cryostasis where they can freeze the body because it takes 2 years or cryo sleep or whatever it is to get there, or stasis as they call it. And it's fascinating because these want to meet the creators, the people who made them. And at the beginning of the film, there's like this humanoid being, like 10 foot tall, and he drinks this black goo substance and it breaks him down into molecules. Takes his DNA apart, and then
falls off the waterfall,
and then he's
disperses.
and then you see this DNA forming again, and it's like, well, they've seeded Earth, which is why they call them engineers. So they get there anyway. Cut long story short, they find out that something sinister has happened there, and there's this final scene. I'm cutting out loads, but I'm getting to the point. Basically, is that they find out that one of these engineers is still alive and it's in stasis, right? And they've basically found out that this ship that they were in, called the Juggernaut,
it's a bomb, wasn't it?
It was had a massive payload on it, and it was headed to Earth. And it does allude to a lot of religious context. So basically, it's like it was 2,000 years ago, obviously, when Jesus Christ was crucified and all that stuff. And they basically end up waking up this engineer who's obviously an advanced alien species, but humanoid. And they've got this AI, what's it called? Like a android. Like what the ones from Blade Runner, it's similar to them, because them universes actually overlap. And because of its advanced capabilities, it's able to decipher Proto-Indo-European language, which is the oldest language known on Earth. And if you've ever heard it talk, if you've ever heard anybody speak it, it linguistically sounds very, very unique. And they basically start talking it now. Ridley Scott, and I honestly don't know why the fuck he did this, he cuts out the dialogue in the film, in the theatrical release, but the director's version, they actually have this conversation. And the crux of it is the guy who's funded this, Peter Wayland, he wants to basically, he's seeking immortality. And it's so funny. It's like you look at the arrogance and the hubris of humans. He's asking this fucking 11, 12 giant. He's telling this android, this bot basically, to ask him, tell him where we've come from. And he basically says, oh, like, we've come from Earth. Imagine being woke up after 2,000 years and someone's just, yeah, mate, I want to fucking live longer. Give us some life, basically. And he says to him in his own language, he's like, why are you here? And he's like, oh, he wants to know why you're here. And he says, I'll never forget this. He's like, looks at him and he says, do you see this man? He says, my company built him from nothing. I made him in my own image, as it is in the Bible, like God made us in his own image. He went, me and you are gods. So he's trying to compare himself to this fucking thing. And he's like, and gods never die. And then he touches this creation and he obviously realizes I mean, this is how I interpret it anyway, that it's synthetic.
Yeah.
Then he just fucking rips its head off and then kills all of them. Anyway.
Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, the thing is, but there's a scene in it, right, where one of the doctors is asking, shouting at the android to ask this engineer, ask him where they're from and why they were trying to kill us. Like, what did we do wrong? And then there's a scene where, like, he's looking at this doctor and this Peter Wayland, the old guy, he tells his daughter to tell her to shut up, so he smacks her in the stomach. And he, like, looks at what's happened, and it's like, the way I interpret it is these humans are just still violent species who just fucking kill each other, and
so they
haven't learned the lesson, so they're not even worthy of fucking of life. We gifted you life, we seeded the planet, and I think that's when you go back to, like, to the origins of Earth. I'm sorry, but I just don't believe that the Big Bang. Did you think this was all created by accident? There's no fucking way. When you look at how perfect living conditions have to be, or conditions on the planet have to be in order to be habitable, it's all engineered. There's no fucking way that this all just happened by accident. There's no way. What is the purpose in all of this? Why are we sitting down here? Why do we come here time and time again?
Oh, well, can I just comment there? On the
sorry, mate.
No, don't be sorry.
Go on. A word you use there, design. We're here by design.
Mm-hmm.
I did DMT in May for the first time.
Oh, what was that like?
and I didn't know what to expect because I've done ayahuasca 6 times. So I've done ayahuasca.
Are you?
Yeah.
What was that? What was the difference between the two?
Completely different.
Was it?
Yeah. Completely
Sorry, mate. Anyway.
No. It makes sense. I'll circle back, but I did this DMT. We were at we were away for a friend's birthday, and this guy had it give it from his birthday because he said it's like one of the most amazing things that's ever happened to me. Doing this, so he had it in the vape form, and he said, "Come with me." It was almost, I've got him in my phone as the DMT tour guide. So he sat us down on this chair. It will make sense, by the way. So we sat down on this chair and he went, I'm weaving. So he said, right, sit down, relax, take a few deep breaths, relax, and just kind of like, just ground. And then, so you take a hit of this thing and you wait for like 9 to 15 seconds, depending on how you're feeling, and then just let it out, right? And I'm looking out on this massive green, and there's like, you know, when they shape trees perfectly, there's like triangle ones and then square ones and round ones. And this gorgeous place, 25 people mansion, right? So it's a gorgeous scene to look at. The sun was just coming up. And I take it to this thing, and I like close my eyes, and I open my eyes, and I just breathe out. And all of a sudden, right, I see like tram lines. Like you can imagine, you know, like dotted paper, and like, you know, when you used to get in school, it was all like lined paper, like maths paper.
Geometric.
But it was geometric, so it was like geometric patterns and everything weaved into everything, right? So I don't even mean that. I didn't even mean to do that.
I didn't mean to do that.
The grass weaved into the soil, which weaved into the trees. The trees were talking. The trees were like, you could almost feel the connection between the trees, but the maddest thing is, and I said to my wife, this is the maddest thing. I stood up with my mate Rob, and I went, Rob, can you see that there? And he was pointing at the same lines in the floor. So we were in the same thing.
So collective.
It was collective.
Yeah.
I wasn't like having a trip and he was having a trip. It was like we were looking. By the way, it wasn't trippy. I was more in the moment than I've ever been in my life, and I still to this day haven't had a more solid grounding moment. But I was pointing at the floor, and I said, right, can you just go down there and point at them lines? And he was pointing at the same lines. So when you talk about design,
yeah.
I completely understand where you're coming from, because I came out of that experience the next day and I was like, Eleanor, that just blew my fucking head off. This is not here by accident. And I went home and I was thinking about this for weeks, and still now, I can't explain it, but the fact that we were saying the same thing at the same time, in the same moment, and it all looked like it was designed by a computer program. It looked like I was in some sort of like digital experience.
Matrix.
Look, it just looked like it was designed. So, I mean, I'm not saying that. I have no idea. I can't explain it apart from what I saw with my eyes. But yeah, I do think it's designed. I don't know how. I don't think we can really understand it. Our consciousness can only see so far, but yeah, mad.
I know what Shak's saying, because I've thought about that many times, and all theories, you know, like we were saying before, are exactly that. Hypotheses, theories based on what we don't know, what do we think we know. But like the Big Bang Theory as an example, you know, it's a theory. Anything's possible, but for everything to be the way it is off a bang, like looking at it at basic form, it's the equivalent of me just throwing a glass kettle over there, it's smashing into 1,000 pieces, then rebuilding itself on the side, plugging itself in with a perfect thermostat to boil my water at the perfect temperature and put it in a cup with a sugar cube and a bit of whipped cream on top, and me drink it. Because that's where we're living, let's be honest. Perfect temperature, water to drink, food that's growing, animals that we live amongst and that we need to feed off if we need to survive. Yeah. And a cycle in our own solar system that's the perfect place to live.
So what you're both saying is there has to be some sort of you think there's an inception in somewhere where we've been
incepted. To be a higher consciousness that's doing all of this.
Yeah.
There's just no fucking
because if we're in scale of our solar system and where we are, if we was to move a strand of one of the hairs,
we're perfectly placed.
We'd burn up or we'd freeze.
Yeah.
And that's been for so long. But sometimes when you look at water, like when you get in the sea, particularly in Calatrava in Beeford, it's a nice place. When you grab that turquoise water and you let it just run through your hands, and you realise like that's 80% of us and you can't drink that physical salt water. But how powerful that water, how soft it is, but how powerful it is to even create the cliffs sometimes to fall in on themselves because the constant battering over the years. Where we live is an amazing place. Like when you see a rainbow and you actually just stand and look at it and it's just light reflecting off prisms of water and plants. And when you look at the animals and stuff and you look at the planet that we live on and how we're living here, and how it's happened. If for that to happen off a bang, it's like difficult to comprehend that it's with such precision, innit?
Mm-hmm. It's. Have you ever heard of the golden ratio?
No.
I think it was Tesla that came up with this, but basically that all plants, humans, this is going into like geometry and stuff like that. Like, it's quite hard to explain. I'm well out of my depth here. I've only done limited research on it, but I came across it not too long ago, and it's basically saying that, again, going back to our point about design, it's on about like the circumference of like plants, animals and humans that all have this same ratio from like point to point. It's weird. It's hard to explain. I'm just really paraphrasing the theory, but it's called the Gaussian ratio, which basically alludes to the fact that this was all engineered and done by design by some other higher consciousness or power. But I just think one of my mates, right, I'm not going to mention who it is, but they're such a really positive person, and I ended up getting into a really deep conversation with them. And we started talking about consciousness and life, and we were talking about reincarnation and the purpose of life and that, and he was just like, I don't think we've got have a soul. I went, what, so you think we're just cells and atoms? He went, yeah. I went, well, what the fuck's the point in all this? I could just go across the street now and go and blow someone's head off and there's no repercussions. That doesn't make any sense. I says, this is why I have a hard time with Darwinism. It just doesn't make sense to me. We're the only conscious beings on this planet that can then change our environment. What the fuck happened to the other monkeys? Why didn't they change? I just think it's such a cliche term, and it's also guarded heavily. When those have proposed a different hypothesis, it's immediately shut down. It's not even explored. Well, why? So anyway, we had this conversation about reincarnation. I went, so you just think we're cells and atoms? He went, yeah. So I was like, well, how would you explain? Obviously, again, going back to ancient literature with all religions and stuff like that, talks about reincarnation over and over and over again, and then there's the evidence that we've got, irrefutable evidence of people who've reincarnated quite quickly.
Wait there, go back. I don't understand. We've got evidence of that.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You said that really blasé, like everyone knows that, and I was like, I haven't got a fucking clue what you're talking about there.
Right. There is accounts, and again, I'm paraphrasing, so I'd ask people to go and look up what I'm talking about. I'm going to give a really condensed version of this. Again, this is stuff I've known about for a long time, so sometimes I don't articulate the point in a simple term because I just expect some people to understand it. But there was this case of this little boy, and I can't remember what part of the world it was from, whether it was Mexico or the Middle East or whatever. And he was like 3-4 years old, and he starts telling his parents, like, oh, I used to be Joe Bloggs. I was murdered by so-and-so. And they're just like, what are you talking about? And he basically says, I'll go and show you where I was killed. So he takes them to where he was murdered. This is his previous incarnation. And sure enough, they dig up the spot, and there's the dead body. By this point, it's obviously decomposing that. And he tells them, or the authorities, whoever, who the person was who killed him and how he was killed. Sure enough, they do like a post-mortem and that, and it's like, yeah, blunt force trauma to the head. And they confront the person who's still alive, who murdered him, and he admits to his murder. How the fuck is that even possible? Then, this isn't just one isolated case. If there was one, then yeah, but there's multiple accounts. What about, there was a boy, I think he was from India or somewhere, and he kept on remembering his previous incarnation. He was like murdered in an armed robbery in San Francisco or something, and he got his parents to take him over to this TV hardware store or whatever. He walks in, this fucking kid, and he's like, "All right, Bob." Obviously, I'm saying it how I would say. But he's like, "All right, Bob, it's me." And he's like, "What you on about, me? It's me, Ted. What you on about?" He's like, "Ted, I used to work with you." And he's just like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And he was just like, "Oh, do you still keep the money in blah blah?" It's only something he would know if he'd worked, and then he recited something that he's white that they said during his wedding ceremony or some shit like that.
Something that
only he would know. This
Yeah.
kid from the opposite side of the world.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's me. He was like, I was killed in an armed robbery. I was shot. It's me. So how can someone have that knowledge unless they were actually that person? That to me is as much proof as you need. And then it's not just that though. Have you ever heard the stories of people who've had heart transplants,
Yeah, I've
and
heard about
they
this.
inherit the memories of the person
Yeah.
that was alive? And that's why I just think the heart's not an organ. It's more than an organ. It's part of not a person's consciousness, but like it's hard. I'm trying to articulate how I feel about. It's not just the organ that keeps the human body alive. It's deeper than that, and it's like, you know, when someone can die of heartbreak, I know there's people out there who might be listening who went through horrible, unspeakable things, and you feel that pain in your heart. You feel it.
It can be physical.
Physically, feel it.
Well,
I
they
get
say
that.
they say that we've got three brains: the brain
gut.
of the heart, and the brain of the gut.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
how intelligent the gut is. So there's truth in that.
Do you believe in reincarnation? What's your thoughts on it?
I don't not believe in it. I mean, first of all, I didn't know those accounts.
Mate, go and just like when you've got some time, just look.
Yeah, well,
up.
I'm going to.
Just look
I'm
up.
actually really. I'm going to do it on the way train, on the way back today. But I don't. So this is my view. I don't know because I obviously
Of course.
we don't know.
Yeah.
My intuition tells me that there's definitely a higher power, something else that I can't explain.
Yeah.
Right. It's a gut feeling, and I have to follow. I always follow my gut. But in terms of reincarnation, I think I would like to think there was. I think that's why I would say I'd like to think there is, because this can't be it.
Of course not.
But whether we transcend and go to something else, another consciousness, a greater, higher consciousness, or we come back as another. What's that theory that you come back and do it again till you get it right? All that.
Well,
all
it's
that.
reincarnation.
Yeah. But so this is what I mean. Whether you come back. But you can say that people are reincarnated not for that reason. When we ever fucking get it right? When does anyone ever get it right?
Well,
what is that defined coming back and getting it right?
Let me propose a theory to you. So I had a friend who also took DMT, and I was sitting with him at the time to obviously make sure he was okay and that.
Okay, yeah.
In his first ever experience, he came back and he said he got taken to the Garden of Eden, and there was this. He said it was a woman, but you couldn't see her face. It was like an orb of light. She had like red hair. And she was just telling him everything's okay. And she said, life's the test. You keep coming back until you get it right.
Oh, you got that from
That's
that
what he got
experience.
told. Now, the way I look at it is this is... each lifetime you come here and you incarnate, you have life lessons and you learn stuff. And I think... just what is the point in it?
I know,
But
we want to know. The thing is, as humans, we want everything has to have a point. We want to know why on everything.
Suppose that's a good point.
When you were young, you go, "Mum, goes,
Why?
oh, don't touch that. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's hot. Why?
Yeah.
Like it's we always want to know that. Just in answer to not answer, but to comment on your friend's experience with DMT. So ayahuasca has DMT in the tea. The Peruvian tea, the ceremonial drink. And the first time I did ayahuasca, I had an experience which it wasn't words that we speak, but I remember I went through it was a purge, but I went through all the emotions. I cried, I laughed, I giggled a little bit, I got angry, and then I cried, and I went through this whole range of emotions. But when I came out, there was like 3 of us in the ceremony, and we the shaman's incredible, put some candles on, puts a bit of music on, then we kind of talk through our experiences if we want to talk about our experiences. And the only thing that I got from that is when I came out of it, I was laughing and crying at the same time with joy. You know, when you cry with joy, right? You can have those emotions where you're bawling, but you're happy. And the reason I was bawling and I was happy was because there was an intrinsic feeling. It was like a knowing that there's something else. It was almost like I was wrapped in a blanket of something else that I can't explain, that was going, it's going to be okay. That's how I came. It wasn't words. It wasn't like anything was going, it's going to be okay. It was like a knowing. And I came out crying, because I was so happy. I was happy. It was almost came out. It was like, I was actually not scared to die after that. I remember speaking to Eleanor and going, sometimes I have moments where I'm scared of death and I need to make my life worthwhile living and I want to have a legacy and all this shit. But I came out there going, everything's going to be okay. And that's why I feel, from my experience, that I think there's something else, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's the mystery that we all want to know, but the why is something we're always going to want. So
I think, you know what, that's a really good point, and I've never looked at it from that opinion perspective, rather like I've always like wanting to know why, but you going back to what you just said there about having this feeling.
I can't explain it.
Carry on, because I had a mad experience.
No, go on.
I had a mad experience in the last 5 years, 6 years, and I said it to Mish, and I pondered on the thought process that I went through and how if you stay in the place of anything's possible. But I actually thought that you was me and you was me and Gorgeous George is me and this whole universe is just me in this big bang of energy, and I'm conceptualizing this reality that I feel like you're separate, but it's just not. All my consciousness in its own world that's just completing this cycle. So the reincarnation theory comes into that, but everything's just all connected as one. But yeah, I'm perceiving it as if I'm in this reality where I'm interacting with other beings and other things, but it's all just one thing connected.
Well, it goes back to that theory, innit? The one consciousness, the collective consciousness, and that source, whatever you want to call it, the great universal God, whatever. It splintered itself off into pieces, and we are all just the same, and it's just experiencing life through different vessels to collect information and learn.
We're just a vessel of a single consciousness.
But when I had the thought though, I got like the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I just
mine did a little bit there when you said it.
Yeah, I thought about it, and I thought, because it was not long after my dad had passed away, and I just thought, what if like life's just everything? And there's a poem actually, I've got it here, Mish, when I was telling Mish this experience that I had and the thought process I had, but something switched where I was like, that's possible. Anything's possible. But imagine that was what would be the game. And that's it, the reincarnation. But check out a poem, if you've not read it, by a guy called Andy Weir called The Egg. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Somebody mentioned this to us not long ago.
If you read that, basically Mish straight away said to me, she went, remember the egg? And I went, what, the fucking egg in London? She went, no.
In St. Anne?
Yeah, I know the egg down at the roundabout. Que pasa? But she went, the egg poem that I read years ago, and I was like, no. And she went, yeah, got it up, and she went, read it. And I'd read this poem years ago. Anyway, I went back through it and read it. It's pretty big, but when you read it, basically, it's a poem based on what I just said.
About us being one.
We're basically just everything, that we're just in this cycle, this energy, whatever it is, in this reality, and we're conceptualizing it as everything that's separate, because it's all like a massive, giant digital Rubik's Cube where we're just, and eventually we'll get to a point where it's like bang, and then we're on to the next one. It's just mad thought.
I don't know if that scares me. I don't know. Do you know what scares me? The thought of, so we're talking about the meaning of life and the why. Mm-hmm. What is the why, right? Yeah. It's that fucking mystery we all want to know. We all want to strive to be the best person because we all think we don't know, but we've got one chance at this, right? If that's your theory, you know, we get born, we grow up, we die, okay? The thought of being reincarnated to come back as me and just doing it again and again and again, say just reincarnation as me, right? That scares the fucking shit out of me.
It does me.
Why does it scare you? And by the way, do you know, just to interject quickly before you respond, it's not like you relive the same life. It's like you come back in another simulation, in the sense that like you could, next time you could be a woman, but you might still have the same obstacles to overcome.
The same name, it'll work.
But I don't. But by that, what I
Jackie.
mean, by that, what I mean is you're not going to live the exact same incarnation. It's a different type.
But that's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I'm really sorry, I'll just quickly finish this.
Go.
Someone proposed this to me, and I've never thought about this. It's such a contradiction to my beliefs. But he said, what if you can incarnate at different times? So where it's 2024, it's November 2024 now. You could incarnate in fucking 600 AD in your next life because, as Tesla said, the past, the present, and the future, they all exist. Time's not, what the fuck's the word that we
Linear.
Linear. It's not linear in the universe. The past, the present, the future all exist. And I was like, I've never thought of that before. It's possible, but I'd choose not to believe that it is because I'm like, we're like trying to move forward as a society, and let's just say you die in this, because I believe you pick the time and date and everything down to the minute your parents and everything when you're born. I've always believed that.
Do you know what the irony is, though, in what you just said there? When you think about it, we try and move forward as a society, but the more forward we think we're going, the more backwards we need to go.
Yeah.
Innit? We was actually more advanced
ironic.
many years ago in a lot of levels.
I know. It's you know what it is. You'll talk about one thing and then it contradicts another thing, and it's just like it's like the more you know, the less you know.
Do you know why? Everything is a paradox.
I love it.
Everything is a paradox when you
We were
think
saying
about
this
it.
the other day.
Everything's a paradox.
Jackie read this thing on before. I said to him, just read that there, and he just went, everything's a paradox.
It
Just
is.
on the train, just
you
like
think
that.
about
Just
it.
went, everything's a paradox. A giant paradox.
Sorry, Jack. Yeah, I cut you off.
No, it's all right.
You're talking
so
about
I mean, reincarnation in the way you were describing it's one thing, but someone put it to me, and I was thinking if this was a life I had to just relive again and again. I'll be honest, I've had experiences where I've been not in a good place, right, and I've been like not here mentally, and I've been in a moment where I've thought. I've had it a few times where I've thought, this is an experiment. I'm going to do this again and again and again.
what, like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, never, but in our life. So our life happens and then we come, it's just again and again. That scares the shit out of me. And I don't know why, because that means I come back.
How have you formulated that opinion?
Through,
have you come to that conclusion?
Well, no, it's not a conclusion, and I'm not concluding anything. I'm not saying that's a theory. It's just something that I've thought in a moment where I've been, let's say, a little bit intoxicated, shall we say? Yeah, gone with the wind. And
on the weed.
Isn't it interesting, the thought of me, this never ending, as in this is infinite. That scares me. But also, dying, in a way, scares me. I mean, less now I've done ayahuasca and I had that experience, but still, I don't want to. No one wants to die, right? Most people, but I don't want to live forever either. There's that's a paradox. I don't want to live forever, and I don't want to die. But what the fuck is it? What's that?
I think we perceive death the wrong way on this planet, and by that what I mean is we don't die. The physical vessel ceases to exist, but this is eternal, and I think that's why when someone's life, or rather their vessel ceases to exist, should celebrate their life. Obviously there's mitigating circumstances such as, like children, like that's one thing. And I asked my mum this question, and I was just like, because again it's going back to questioning and why and I asked my mum, I said, what is the purpose of people who have children and the fetus is stillborn? And she said some people come here to help others grow. Or like people who are mentally handicapped, like physically can't, mentally, they have limited learning, and it's like, well, like, it's just, because I look at it from a learning perspective, like each lifetime we come here and the challenges and obstacles, and he says some people volunteer to help others grow and evolve. But again, it's all theory and stuff like that. And I guess ultimately what I would say to everybody out there is we all have our own opinions on everything, and at the end of the day, you just have to see what resonates with you and what you think is true and what you think is right. You could spend all day just thinking what is true and what's not, and you could drive yourself crazy thinking like that. So I guess just be at peace and formulate your own truth, and don't be a cunt, be a nice person.
Well, no, to add on to that, one thing, just to add to that, when he came last time, went back to mine for a barbecue, one thing that Schak said, he stopped and went, Jackie, why do you think why do we struggle to have debate these days? What can we do to let people know it's okay to debate?
Yeah.
And just going back to what you're saying, formulate an opinion, but don't be afraid to hear someone else's opinion. And also what we said about before, don't be afraid to change your opinion. Just because you have an opinion or an idea doesn't mean you have to just steel on it the whole time and dig your feet in. Be open-minded and be open to hear other people's opinions, because we have to be able to debate. This is why I wanted to do this conversation. I know fuck all about aliens. You know, I was even struggling with Darwinism. There's some things. This is not my area of expertise, but I wanted to sit down with people who are interested in it, and like I said, steelman the situation. I think it's good to have these fucking, even if it's for fun. This is obviously for fun,
yeah, of course,
and to catch up. But we can have these debates with serious topics as well. So anyway,
but it's it's the freedom to kind of think, and like that's why obviously Waff was meant to be here as well, because he has that UFO around his neck, and we'll maybe do another one again. But when we was talking with Schak, and Schak said that question, he said, why don't you think we can't have open, honest debate anymore? Talking from society level, governments, you know, power, control, you know, manipulation, you know, capitalism and corporatization. And if you think about it now, from my time, from the 80s to now, there's just, the more connected we think we're getting, the more disconnected that as human beings we're kind of becoming. So when people have a formed opinion and they get upset with open, honest debates because they're guarding something, because they don't want you to explore and talk about the how and the why. And I have a theory based on what Schak was saying before, and you've touched over it, and we've had experiences with friends and even with ourselves over the years. And when you look at psilocybin as an example, it's the only thing on the planet that can survive in a vacuum, which means in essence that even if this planet did form itself, space is a vacuum, so it's come from somewhere. So my theory is that when you unlock a certain sequence and the way that your mind can work and open itself, the reason why alcohol is celebrated because it's a depressant and it closes certain areas, the reason why you class A drugs are psilocybin when it's just a mushroom that's on the planet is, you know, it's even proven to treat people with serious trauma.
Yeah, PTSD.
That's how advanced this stuff is. So anyway, when you go there and you start to unlock these certain areas, you start to think big, think different. They don't want that. So it goes back to the thing about closing the mind, you know, and you see people, I think they're called savants, where they're classed as people who have got neurodiversity and think differently. But these people have got extreme gifts, memory. They can recall photographically everything. There's a guy who can draw the entire skyline of New York City from one view in a helicopter. Another guy who they get into this lab, he had a brain tumor and he was a savant anyway. This caused further, what they said, like issues with his brain. But what happened off the back of it, he had severe headaches, and then he got pen to paper and he could do ridiculous mathematical equations. So they invited him to this scientific lab in the States and tested him. And he could do, they developed this calculator which was like 21 digits long, and they asked him a sum, the square root of pi x times fucking 3,000 divided by whatever. And he literally had nothing there, and he just went boom, 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 boom. And there was all of the pens and paper, and they're like this, watching him. And then he carried on. And when the calculator ended, he carried on with the decimal points, and he went, do you want me to carry on? And they studied him because they was like, you can learn maths, you can learn it to this level. So they tested him where they knew this is not learned capacity, this. And that's where you saying about DNA sequencing and things turned off.
Yeah.
Like there's a woman whose car flipped on top of a kid in Detroit.
Picked it up. Yeah,
you know, she picked the car up because she was down in the side of the road in Detroit. My auntie lives in Detroit. Super snowstorms, gets deep. Yeah. The car was inside the ditch, and she just managed to pick the car up because her baby was alive underneath the car. So in that moment, she unlocked the ability to do something that was different. So for me, interesting. Yeah, interesting subject, and we could carry on.
Yeah, there's loads more, but what I would just say, just to conclude things, is like always ask questions and then go and do your own research on all these topics, like all of the topics that we've just discussed today. Yeah. They're all like, you know, theories and stuff like that, but it's through asking questions and wanting to understand and learn more.
Being curious.
And never shut your mind off, and never take things at face value. Always use your mind. That's what we have. That's different from every other species on this planet, is that we have consciousness, and use your mind. Don't waste it. And there's no harm in asking why and exploring.
And listen to other people as well. It's nice to be open.
Yeah.
But are UFOs real or UAPs?
Who
Yeah.
knows?
Who knows?
We'll do this again. We'll get
another
waffy next time.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers, everyone. Thank you.
Cheers.
Wicked.
Ciao, ciao.
Okay.